All right, I'm ready when you all are.
Okay, you're live.
All right, thank you, Chief of Staff. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Discipline Ad Hoc Matrix. Welcome, Deacon Reginald Lyles, Captain Brian Hubbard. Good to see you all. Do a quick check in the audience to see if there's any
No,
members with us. No,
no
it
one's
looks
here
like
yet.
we're all good. It's just here.
Mhm.
So as we continue to meet and pick up where we've left off a couple weeks ago, we're going to be looking at reviewing some of the input that we gave at last meeting. And then Captain Hubbard has 10 more uh, MORs for us to look at. Um, and then we'll see how fast we get through those. So we'll judge if we do 5 or 10, depending on how quick those are. But these are the class 2 ones, so hopefully they won't be as complicated as some of the other ones that we've talked about. Um, but with that being said, I want to turn it over to Captain Hubbard. Good evening, and let's go ahead and get started.
Great. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen here. Just my notes. I have a recap of what we covered on the 2nd of April. We covered general conduct. We had no changes to that. We spent a lot of time talking about 31404-2, and I'll cover that here. I'm going to go back to that in just a second. We talked about 31407, conduct towards others, demeanor. No changes to that. 31408, conduct towards others, relationships. That was our second conversation regarding this, and as a reminder to everyone, this had to do with converting professional relationships into personal relationships. We talked about this a couple months ago. As you recall, there was a lengthy debate over that, and we elected 2 weeks ago not to change this. And just for context, because I know some people had to jump off right around the time that we were talking about this. In my tenure working in IA, I've only seen maybe two of those cases, so it's not like it's an epidemic or a problem. So we decided to keep that, and then finally, performance of duty, uh, PDRD. So those are our body worn camera activations. Um, I would say when we first got them, there was definitely a muscle memory learning curve to go with it. Now that we have introduced them for many years now, and also we give inert body worn cameras to our recruits in the academy, except for people like me who work in the building. Uh, Everyone's pretty good about activating their body worn camera timely because they're just so used to it. So we've definitely seen a huge improvement over the years with that. But still, it's still a class 2 where if one is delayed, then they would violate that section, and there's been no changes to that. Although I do need to change PDRD to body worn camera because that's more in tune with current language. We did spend a lot of time talking about this conduct towards others, harassment, and discrimination. And just as a recap, I'll scroll down here just so you see it. If you can see that, you'll see two sections for this. So, conduct towards others, harassment, and discrimination. There's a class 1 version of that here, the top one. The range on that is a 30-day suspension to termination for the first offense, and the second offense is termination. Then we have a class 2 section of that, which is unprofessional conduct in violation of AI 71. The range on that is counseling and training to a 30-day suspension, with written reprimand to a 30-day suspension, and a 30-day suspension to termination. Okay. So the problem with this, as we discussed, is that this is confusing. The top one here is also a violation of AI 71. So the question is, what parts of AI 71 administrative section, administrative Admin, administrative instruction 71 from the city manager, which encompasses all the city of Oakland, all employees. Which parts pertain to a class 1? Which parts pertain to a class 2? So we left off last 2 weeks ago agreeing that maybe we should combine them to make it just one, a class 1 violation, and then allow the chief to mitigate up or down. So eventually we're going to have to come back to this part right here and talk about which is a fair range for AI 71 violations.
Correct, because now the range has to encompass the combination of both of these
That's
parts.
right. That's right. That's right. And just for those who may recall, I gave the example of there's a I don't want to downplay it, but there is a difference between, let's say, just straight sexual harassment versus me playing inappropriate music in the gym that everyone can hear and maybe be offended by. Uh, Both carry equal weight within AI 71, and so that's the challenge. I don't is We want to make sure there's a range. So if the chief is faced with the first one, sexual harassment, that should be a termination. Okay, that's an easy one. But if we're dealing with something where it's not as severe as termination, but it's still an AI 71 violation, like playing inappropriate music in the gym where it does offend someone, or maybe not offend someone, but could be perceived as offensive, then that should be on the lower range of discipline. So that's what we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Now, we haven't gotten into changing any of these actual ranges within the matrix itself, right? And so, is this something that now we give recommendations to and weigh in on, or we just leave it to city attorney and chief and them to figure out, is this a union issue? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, technically, when we first started this, if you recall, like the first two meetings, we actually went through the MRs and then we jumped to the matrix and we played around with it. That proved to be difficult because it was really compartmentalized. So we agreed to deal with all the manual of rules sections, which we're doing now, class ones and class twos, and then after the fact, go back and talk about the matrix. I don't think the unions, the city attorney's office are going to have too much anxiety over our manual of rules section changes. Just because they brought them up to current times, we haven't made sweeping changes to where they're shocking to the conscience, in my opinion. I think people are going to really have a lot of angst and opinion with the matrix. You're going to have the unions, let's say, who are going to be pushing for the lower end. City attorney maybe for the upper end. It depends. So there's going to be a lot more discussion. We can use this time, let's say right now, for example, to talk about the matrix, or we can wait until we're all done with the manual rules. But yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Okay. I mean, definitely, we'll put a note in this when we get to
Yeah.
the rules, if that's something we're going to end up doing.
All right.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, so for today, there's no further discussion. We did get through all the class ones, so that will soon be given to the chief. When we last met, the chief was on vacation, so he has not yet seen the letter. We missed each other when he came back. I left, so he will be getting that as soon as next week. I have 10 new class two sections to talk about. They're all someone in the same family. I know we did talk about a couple of them early in the early stages. We'll start with 342, which is Department Property and Equipment Preventable Collision. Okay. So this section is Department Property and Equipment. Members and employees are responsible for the proper. Did it pause the share? Hold on one second. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Property and equipment members and employees are responsible for the proper care of department property and equipment assigned to or used by them. The following may subject the responsible individual to reimbursement charges and or appropriate disciplinary action to the extent allowed by the law. Major vehicle collision based on degree of damage and or negligence, minor vehicle collision based on degree of damage and or negligence, improper use of property equipment, proper care of property equipment, failure to carry required property equipment, misappropriation, misuse of property equipment, damage or loss of property equipment, and improperly securing weapons. In the event that department property is found bearing evidence of damage that has not been reported, it shall constitute presumptive evidence that the person last using the property vehicle was responsible. So where we typically see this are vehicle collisions. Just to give you all the process for this, whenever there's a vehicle collision involving a city vehicle, so it doesn't even have to be on duty because some have take-home vehicles. Uh, there is a traffic report that is written, and there is a subsequent investigation that is done by our traffic unit. They render an opinion on whether the officer or employee is at fault by either calling them party one, which would be the party at fault, or party two. And then that is then assigned to the members' chain of command, and then finally the chief to make the decision on whether it's a preventable collision or a non-preventable collision. Over the years, I would say the number one issue that I see with collisions are the slow speed backing, and that was one of the more difficult things to actually teach in the academy. And this is anecdotal, but I mean, I bet you I can prove to be true. Is a lot of these young officers' vehicles drive for them, back up for them, parallel park for them, and here they are driving cars now that don't do that at work, and we have a lot of collisions as such. So we actually spend more time talk with slow speed driving than high speed driving in the
Wow.
academy and in service. Yeah, yeah,
Huh, interesting. So there's
yeah.
no rear cameras in the cars.
There are backup cameras in the Ford Explorers that we drive, but with the cage that we have in there and just the overall geometry of the car, coupled with the officer wearing everything that they're wearing, uh, yeah, they don't. It's definitely a perishable skill. And coming from the academy, I can tell you that some people just never like. I'm like, have you ever parallel parked ever? And they're like, no, my car does it for me.
Oh
Do you
wow.
ever back up in your personal car? No, I never back up. There's no need to. So we literally have to ground zero for a lot of just driving skills in the academy. Yeah,
Times have changed,
yeah,
certainly.
yeah, certainly. And also, like, I mean, I have this issue with my kids. Like, they're just not excited to get their license at 16. I mean, that's no different. A lot of people starting the academy get their license like the week before. So like, oh, why do I need to get a license? You know, I can Uber and Lyft everywhere I want. And
Hmm.
so, yeah. So anyway, so the majority that I see here are vehicle collisions. Yeah. Any thoughts on this section?
I don't have any. Pretty straightforward. Huh?
Okay. Um, I'm trying to just think some issues that have come up with that, with this. Yeah.
When it says responsible for reimbursement charges, how does that work?
Yeah, and so that's what we talked about. That's what we talked about many months ago, and
Mhm.
the big word that we got hung up on is May. I went back and looked at my notes, and I know some of us flirted with the idea of like getting rid of that word, as in if it is a preventable collision or any damage to city property, it's a shall. Hey, there's going to be some heartburn over that from the unions, but that is up for discussion.
Right.
And one way of looking at this is it depends on the severity and, of course, how often one gets sustained for vehicle damage. Usually, I see one, and then people learn their lesson. We give them remedial training, and it's many years since we've seen another. Some not so much. I would say we do see some negligence there. I would not see reckless, not anymore at least, reckless negligence. I mean, people's driving behaviors have improved significantly because of this, not wanting to get sustained. But anyway, what I'm getting at is, let's say they get a 1 day suspension, the reimbursement can come in by use of their personal leave time. So the chief can agree to, okay, you can pay back the city, if you will, by giving up X number of vacation days or something. So there is some truth to this, but I don't think I've ever seen someone write a check to the city of Oakland for X number of dollars for whatever damage.
No, that idea of bartering, you know, PTO is actually pretty brilliant, because you also, because of whatever actions, now not want to take an officer off the streets double time. So
Right.
it's almost kind of like you're sacrificing your paid vacation or whatever that time off is to go back and do some additional training, and that incentivizes to not do that again.
That's right. Yeah.
It's all the same money. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 342.19. Damaged inoperative property or equipment. Members and employees shall immediately report to their immediate supervisor or commanding officer any loss of or damage to departmental property or equipment assigned to or used by them. The immediate supervisor shall be notified of any defects or hazardous conditions existing in any department equipment or property. In the event the department property is found bearing evidence of damage that has not been reported, shall constitute presumptive evidence that the last person using the property or vehicle was responsible. I don't think I've ever seen this section used. Sometimes there's a lot of equipment that is issued to people. I would say this would probably be most applicable when one retires and we ask for all their stuff back, and they're like, "Well, 30 years ago, you gave me a flashlight in the academy that used D-cell batteries. I don't have that anymore." I'm like, "Well, that's technically department property, but that was 30 years ago, so there's some grace given there." But yeah, I normally don't see any issues with this section.
may I ask you that when officers are involved in collisions, they will tell you, right? You have a few that don't, and then that's probably the most severe situation, correct?
It is, yeah, yeah. We've had a few where it's questionable whether the officer knew that there was damage to the vehicle, and if they did, then they should have reported it. Sometimes proven true that the officer did not know based on whatever evidence that we have. Sometimes it does occur, but we do teach. I know we talked about this before, but we do mandate pre-shift inspections of their
Yeah.
vehicles. So yep, you have to do that, and
Do the
members are
officers
good.
do that?
They do.
They do?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're very good about it. They do it because of this last section here that says, if bearing evidence that had not been reported, shall presumptive evidence, and nobody wants that against them. So that's why people are very good at pre-shift inspections, because they don't want to be responsible for someone else's damage.
Yeah, I can see someone parking their car somewhere and some other driver
Yeah,
hitting the car in some kind of way, and it's not a real obvious damage, and
yeah.
then you don't report it, but when you get out the car, you should walk around it, I'm sure.
Good evening, everyone. This is Marcia. How's everybody? Can you hear me?
Well, we can.
Yes, we can. Good
Yes.
evening,
Hello.
Brenda. How are you?
Can you hear me? No.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was waiting for, confirmation.
Well,
Do the officers always have the same car issued to them on a regular basis?
No, not necessarily. We try our best to do it that way. Just sometimes it doesn't work out. And I'll give you an example. I mean, so our first watch and graveyard third watch, they share vehicles. But sometimes, let's say a third watch officer is stuck on a late call. So the first watch officer will take a different vehicle. Sometimes it's in the shop getting repaired or just the general maintenance. But we do try, but it doesn't always work out that way.
So, but it really does behoove then the officer on every day to walk around, check the vehicle for damage.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, that's the
Yeah.
incentive. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The more savvy officers actually get it on camera too. They turn on their body worn camera. I like
Oh.
that strategy too.
Okay.
Why don't we put it in the policy?
We can, yeah.
Yeah.
And that would
Yeah.
say that the officer is required
Yeah.
to check the vehicle, on, at the time it's issued daily.
Yes. That's already a policy, and the only change would be to record it on your body worn camera. Officer shall record it on your body worn camera, and that would eliminate any problem.
And that eliminates a lot of the guesswork.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me make that known. I like that.
Yeah, there's no cost. It's already, they're already trained to use it, and there you have it.
This should be viewed that some policies are just meant to help protect them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. I like it.
She's back.
34257, care of city or department buildings, members and employees shall not mark or deface any surface in any city or department building. No material shall be affixed in any way to any wall in a city or department building without specific authorization from a commanding officer.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this as an issue. This is closely aligned with AI 71. So obviously posting inappropriate material in a locker room could violate AI 71 also, and this section. Okay, 34276, members and employees shall not mark, alter, deface any posted notice of the department. Notices of announcement shall not be posted on bulletin boards without permission of a commanding officer. No notices of a derogatory or discriminating nature as defined in City Administrative Instruction 71. So this one, I can tell you, so I'll give you an example of where we fail in this. We have a wellness unit and they will often post things throughout the department just on general wellness, announcements that, hey, Kaiser's doing a flu shot, or this new app that we have just for overall wellness. We typically don't get commanding officer authorization for that. So I'd like us to reconsider. We have bulletin boards posted throughout each floor has one. It's made for people to post positive things. One should know that it should not be offensive to where it violates AI 71, but having a commanding officer authorize it each time is quite laborious and I think unnecessary. So I like to consider changing this one.
To a sergeant?
Well, I can tell you that I have never seen anything upsetting posted on a bulletin board in the department. So I don't even know if that's, I guess we could. Yeah.
I'm of a different
Yeah.
generation. See,
Yeah.
I was in law enforcement when different ethnicities came into the department, when women came into the department, when people from different sexual orientations came into law enforcement. And I've seen this kind of posting and graffiti and bathroom garbage all over the place, from the chief down to bathroom stalls.
Yeah, and we're getting into some strange political times too.
Yeah, don't think this is not a big deal, because
yeah,
this is a big deal.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can say this then. Maybe I should expand it because now we do most of our notices via email, and that in a
Sure.
separate policy requires commanding officer approval. I guess interesting about that is that you can't really hide from email. I mean, if I post something inappropriate, you're going to know that I'm the one who posted it versus a bulletin board where, okay, I do post something inappropriate. One, how do you know it's me? And two, where do I document that I did get commanding officer approval?
Oh,
Well,
that's what I was gonna ask you, whether or not do they have to like put their initials somewhere prominent where it indicates that it has been approved?
that's what we need.
Yeah. So an email, what I'm supposed to do if I, let's say I want to make an announcement that there's a 5K run in honor of Officer Lay, I would have to say this email was approved by Captain so and so. But if I posted something on a bulletin board, according to this, I need commanding on, but there's no place for me to document that approval.
I think it has to be on the front, an initial. If it doesn't bear an initial of a commanding officer, it can be taken down.
That's how you manage it. You manage it by, number one, making it mandatory that if anything is physically posted on a bulletin board, it has to be signed off. Now, if you say it's too tedious and cumbersome for commanding officer to do it, then okay, fine. Then have a sergeant's approval. If there is no sergeant's approval, then there ought to be somebody inside the building who's managing, I guess this is a lieutenant's job from my training. The cleanliness of the building, the how the building is looking, and one of the things they can is manage that board. If they don't have a sergeant's approval on it, take it down.
Okay. Yeah.
This way
yeah.
you prevent folk from insulting and offending other people intentionally, to actually hurt them. And it does happen.
You definitely don't want a free for all.
You should have something on that bulletin board that says any posting must bear the initials of an approving officer.
Whatever, yeah, whoever it is. Yeah, I agree with you, Marsha. It could be, but what he's saying is that the commanding officer is too much for them to do. Okay, fine, then let a sergeant assign it and signature. And if that signature is not there, then it should be snatched down. It should be taken down by somebody who's responsible for that board. Who's responsible for the board?
Well, no one is. I mean, each floor has one. I mean, this has evolved over the years. Before when I first started, when there was no email, it was the one outside the lineup room. That was probably the most important because that gave like the most up to date. So the watch commander would assumably be. I mean,
Okay.
I think somewhere in this manual, we haven't got to it yet, but the watch commander is responsible for inspecting everything in the building
That's
during
what I
their
was trying to
shift.
drive at. Yeah. That's the person that should be responsible to make sure that board is policed well.
And that happens anymore, but still, that could be part of their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea, I think what I'm hearing is to balance out not having a free for all where folks could just post things without approval or even identifying who posted it, who itself did the actual posting, with folks that may be inherently part of their position is to continuously post resources and to be able to spread that and the cumbersome nature of maybe get approval. It looked like you froze for a second, Captain. Did you get that? Or maybe it was just on my end.
Yeah, Brian, your screen froze for a moment there. So we don't know if you are hearing everything we're saying. Yeah, he's frozen now, I think.
Looks like he's still frozen. We'll give him a second to reset.
Yeah, it's frozen. Captain Hubbard, can you hear us? He's probably joining back.
All right. You know what? This is actually a good time. Let's take a 2-minute
There he
break.
is.
Oh, there he goes.
Sorry about that. I think I lost you all.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries, no worries.
I missed the last part of what you said, Chair.
Yeah, no, so I think so I was leaving off is just the need to balance out, not having a free for all of folks, you know, that are posting things without approval and or not even being able to identify who actually did the posting itself, especially when they're like physical things that are going on boards.
Yeah.
With also if there are actual positions where inherently it's part of their job. I heard you mention like the wellness stuff, where if it's part of their job to always post something, then I would imagine that between that person and their supervisor, they have a system to be able to have approval anyway of what they're posting in terms of that communication loop. So so yeah, I like the idea of getting, you know, something somewhere where they could sign off on it. If I guess like the technical aspect of how it would be done may be complicated a little bit, especially if they're printing out something else that isn't interdepartmental, right? If it's just a flyer that they printed out, like how would you get somebody to sign off on that? So I think we would just have to figure that out. But I definitely think there needs to be some level of approval and an identified person that it is part of their job, to make sure that, you know, again, it goes with like, you know, how we're publicly displaying ourselves to the community as well too, to always do sweeps, make sure that things are clean and appropriate and in a welcoming space for folks.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so that's great. I'm going to expand notices then. I'm going to include email because that's not included here. And then figure out a way. I think, you know, as I think about it, it's most things that are posted on a bulletin board are parallel to an email notification anyway. Like, hey, here's an email that everyone can see. It's also been posted on the bulletin board. So it might satisfy both, where the email itself can show who authorized it, and then that satisfies the bulletin board thing. All right.
No, it doesn't. Excuse me. No, it doesn't.
How,
Because,
how so?
okay, if somebody posts something on the board and here we got an email, now we got to go find an email that says it's okay that the whatever document is up here is been approved, when it could be just signed off, you know, right on the document itself, and it could be policed much cleaner and quickly by removing it because it does not have a signature, as opposed to going and researching and looking for an email. And anyone who sees that the bulletin board, that the document is up there without a signature ought to be able to take it off. That's how we get it. That's how it's, we're not trying to discover and do a big investigation and end up suspending somebody behind something like that. We're just trying to prevent like being a filter to make sure that hurtful comments and stuff is not being made in the public, that the Oakland Police Department doesn't tolerate that kind of quote unquote humor. What else? We're just joking, you know, that kind of horseplay. That can be intimidating and very hurtful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So if there's no stamp or no signature by a sergeant, then anybody can snatch it and take it down.
Yeah, it feels so simple. I mean, it's old school, but yet so simple. It's like if there's a stamp where somebody could write, you know,
low tech,
the officer, you know, Officer Garcia, and then there's a signature, and then you just get, hey boss, can you sign right here? I'm gonna put this up. Cool. And then everybody's on the same page.
Right.
I mean, it feels pretty simple.
And then if somebody puts something up there that's critical or offensive or trying to humiliate some other officer, any other officer going by seeing it and it doesn't have a signature can take it down, throw it in the garbage can, and that's the end of it.
So I guess would that require a line that says any like physical, like, all right, so you're including emails, right? But then something that acknowledges that any physical postings and like shared
Yes.
spaces need to have a stamp or approval. Because I think that's what it's about too. It's these shared spaces where somebody could just post something, of even like a bumper sticker or a recruitment to a group that ultimately may be offensive, or not in line with department values.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm doing the math in my head on how many signatures one would need because it's usually not one bulletin board, it's dozens, but I got it. I understand. Okay, got it. I'll make that change for the next week, next time we meet. 342.95 department vehicles. Members and employees shall not use any department vehicle without the permission of a commanding officer. Um, Again, this kind of falls in the same line. I have never seen this before. There's presumed authorization, like when an officer starts his or his shift. Like it's not like each officer is going to the watch commander and saying, "Hey, can I check out this vehicle?" I'm trying to think of like if I work on my day, let's say on my day off, a special event, I an officer would check out a vehicle and not necessarily receive explicit authorization from a commanding officer, similar to if they come in on their day off to go to court, they would check out a vehicle. So right now we don't have a process in place where we're abiding by this rule. So I have to think through that too on how that would work. I have to make a note to myself. I have to think through that one. I mean, to me, the easiest way is email. That's just because everyone has access to email, but it's just documented. So I'm trying to if let's say I'm going to court, I come in, I have to check out a vehicle. I know who the watch commander is. I email the watch commander seeking permission to check out vehicle X, Y, and Z. The problem with that, of course, is like the response. It's like, what if it's not a timely response? Then it becomes a challenge. Like, okay, are they not going to have a vehicle now?
Well, right now, if there's not a process of even that being communicated, I think at minimum,
Mhm.
just notifying the supervisor is at least a better step of no communication at all. But you're saying in this, it's saying that it explicitly says it needs approval, which
It does,
at that
and
point require a response.
right. I mean, well, it's also like, let's say I walk, I see the watch commander. Hey, can I check out a vehicle for court? They say yes. There's no proof of that. So I would say that 99% of the department doesn't even know that this section exists. That's the first problem I see. So as I look at this, one, I need to probably reinforce it now, but also how to reinforce because there's not another policy that speaks to this.
Have you seen this as a problem where like officers have cars, you're looking for a car and you're like, oh man, we didn't know that he had it type thing? Or is it usually, like you said, pretty informal and pretty good communication where it's like, hey, grabbing a car, cool, and just folks know?
Yeah, I think it's a mutual respect thing just for one's colleagues. You know that you never want to touch the patrol officer's car because he or she will need it. And then all cars are usually accounted for, even the court cars. So you just, out of respect, you just want to be aware of which one you take out. But we do get some issues. We have, and I'm thinking through the emails that I see of did anyone take vehicle 123? If so, can you contact me ASAP? You know, I know what the story is behind that is like the person's vehicle is now missing and they're trying to find the person who took it.
Yeah.
So,
It feels like there should be some kind of checkout system or way to record that who has a car at any particular time, without it being
yeah,
some either.
we have a much better system than what we had before. It used to be where we have a transportation shack and the keys are just hanging up there and anyone can just go in there and take it. Now we have a digital system that will record who takes a vehicle, but it's still not perfect because some of our specialized units, like if you work in investigations, they share a car and there's multiple keys that go with the car. So it's not as strict as a pool car, if you will. So I need to do some work on this section too and trying to figure out what that looks like. Would you all be open to similar to the previous one, changing it from commanding officer to supervisor or a supervisor?
I don't know.
I wouldn't have a problem with it, but ultimately it has to be the responsibility of a lieutenant to oversee the sergeants, right? I mean, if it's too tedious of the work for the lieutenant or the captain to do, then sergeants ought to be able to do that. But they have to answer to somebody, right? So who are they going to answer to?
Yeah, it would be the lieutenant. I guess I'm not thinking so much. It doesn't happen that often where a commanding officer would be overwhelmed. It's more over like if the watch commander's on a critical incident, here you have the officer trying to track that one watch commander down to seek permission when they're just not available.
I get it. So I'm for sergeants doing that kind of work. I just want, if they're not doing it or part of the problem, I just want a lieutenant to be assigned to take care of it.
Got it. Okay. I will make a note. Okay, departmental insignia. Neither the departmental insignia nor any representation of the official departmental insignia, star, or cap shield may be reproduced in any manner or on any item without the authorization of the chief of police. I wouldn't say that I've seen this violation, but it does come up often. And I dealt a lot with it in training, dealing with different vendors, people trying to sell something, of course, but also like let's say that all the Bay Area law enforcement agencies want to organize a charitable run, and they want to create a poster, and so they ask to use the OPD insignia. So I would then seek authorization from the chief. Now that we have the internet, as elaborate as it is, it's not hard for one to go on Google and find their own and really do what they want with it. So this is more speaking to those in the department who want to use it. They need to seek permission from the chief of police. This, of course, does not say how to seek permission. Anything on this? I don't.
Well, wouldn't you at least send him an email request?
Yeah, well,
Copying his aide?
yeah. That would be the easiest, certainly. I don't know how I feel about people just emailing the chief.
Okay.
Certainly, if I were the chief, I would probably seek. This is kind of where it differs from other policies, where it should be through one's chain of command to the chief of police. Because as a commander, I might look at it and say, absolutely not. I don't even think the chief should even entertain this.
Okay.
We want the chief.
Well, then you just said it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To the chief via your commanding officer, or however that is worded.
through one's chain of command to the chief of police. Yeah.
Right,
Got it.
right.
And I actually like explicitly saying that for that very reason is to prevent people thinking they have a direct line to the chief on something that's like a softball game in 3 months when he has an NSA report that he's, pressed up on. And, so I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll make that change. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Let me look at my notes here and see how far we got.
Looks like maybe about halfway ish.
That actually, I think. Yeah, that actually covers all the 342 sections. I mean, that was pretty good timing. We can, let's see here. We can start the 356 section since we're here. Uh, 356, somewhat similar to what we just talked about. Correspondence, members and employees shall not use departmental letterhead for private correspondence or send correspondence out of the department over their signature without the general permission from the chief of police. Mm. I'm trying to think if I've seen this before. Who would ask for a letterhead? Like, I'm trying to think of like loans and like mortgage stuff. Just sometimes they ask for something official more than just an email, like something department letterhead proving that you work for the city of Oakland.
Sometimes people ask for letters of recommendation. You put that on a letterhead.
Mm-hmm.
It was a professional recommendation. Ask for donations. Do we say that already?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any issues with this except for I'm gonna just the general permission from the chief of police. Same language. I'll through one's chain of command.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of these?
Mm,
Yeah, I don't. Just leave it like it is. Not a big deal if you don't get a lot of them. Right?
yeah. I guess when I worked in training a lot, people asked me for a letterhead, but I've never really asked why. And
Oh,
it's one of those things where one can easily create, though. It's not like this special form with a watermark.
Yeah.
I can easily create one right now just using the
Sure.
internet. But
Well, it's a teaching document that, you're not to do it. So we let people govern themselves by not doing
yeah.
it.
I'm reading a book right now where on the letterhead of an attorney, someone sent in some really damaging information to the press. And it was considered from her office on her
Mm.
letterhead. So letterhead can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah, today's climate is really strange.
Yeah.
Can't believe anything.
Nope. Photoshop people into
Sure.
because they weren't even there. Scary. Very scary.
Okay. 35630 accessing, viewing, downloading, providing, sharing inappropriate material. Members and employees shall not intentionally access, view, download, provide, or share inappropriate material while on duty or in any police facility except in the performance of an official police task. wouldn't say it's an epidemic, but I've certainly seen this before. Yeah. I mean, the internet's everywhere. This doesn't isolate it to work-related materials or devices. If it, even on your personal device, downloading inappropriate things that would fall under this section.
And I worked in a place one time where an attorney, well, the internet was so new, but he had downloaded so much porn, he actually broke the internet system.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I put this in the back of my mind to talk about just because the one, except in the performance of an official police task. All right, so what we have officers who are very savvy with the internet and social media. This may come to no surprise, but sometimes criminals post their behavior online via social media, and we have very talented officers that can easily see it and find it. I mean, it's public. Those postings are often inappropriate. They're violent, sometimes sexual in nature. So the question is, how do we prove it's an official police task, and what process should an officer use before doing that?
Did they have an RD number?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, they should, if they're
well,
investigating something. Yes,
That's the key right there. Just like with CLEX in DMV information, or you can't just go in and ask questions about someone based on their driver's license without just because you have access to the CLEX machine, California
RD number.
teletype, a routing. Is that what it is before you get a case?
Yeah. Report number. Yeah.
So Oakland's way of doing it, correct me if I'm wrong, you get an RD number, and then after a couple of days, then that RD number then becomes a case number, and they could be two different numbers. Am I correct?
The RD number usually is the number that we use, regardless if it's a case number. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
So if you don't have a case number, then you cannot. Then if you are quote unquote investigating something without a case number, then you shouldn't be doing it.
You shouldn't be poking around in there.
Shouldn't be doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are criminal databases, but what about social media? I mean, where do we document that?
Okay, in social media, you're saying that an officer is on social media and he's looking into somebody's background on social media, right? All that's legal.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so I don't know that we can make something illegal that's legal. So are you asking? I don't want officers even going on Google and Googling people or
I don't think you
can the search engines. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a First Amendment right to do that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So I don't think that's violating of any laws there.
No, not the laws. I'm for this section. So let's say you catch me looking at inappropriate pictures of females, and my response is, yeah, okay, but it's an official police task. Now what?
Somebody's lying. Where's
Somebody has to show me where that's official.
Yeah.
Well, but maybe I'm just saying, like, let's say there's been a shooting, and I'm investigating that shooting, and I just happen to be looking at this subject's Instagram, and by doing so, I'm downloading a bunch of inappropriate things. What I'm trying to get to is like the audit trail. Like, how do I verify this?
I think the operative word is official, and you got a decision to make. You have to determine if that person doing that task was being official or if he was just titillating his own or her own, senses.
That's right.
And there's the difference.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can write a policy preventing people, a catch-all policy for preventing people from going into social media, looking at stuff on their own equipment, off duty.
Right.
Well, I mean, a lot of this is on duty. So again, I'm speaking
Well-
of the officer on duty doing this, and they're saying, "Oh, it's a official police task."
But they would have to show me what the link.
Yeah, I got to get an RD number. I got to see where's who said it was official.
Yeah.
Got it.
Where's the link?
Right. So to solidify this a little bit better, then should we add more to what it says? What except in performance and official police tasks, like define what that actually means, or similar to checking out a vehicle or posting material on a bulletin board. There's an auditing process, there's an approval process. Should we look at that similar here?
I think the approval process in my mind was for the official police task is when the person says, we have a case here and, and we're going to need a case number for this investigation. That to me is the official process. Or they've talked to their supervisor, or they're in robbery, homicide, or something, and they're saying, I got some information here, and I'm doing this, I'm looking in this area, and somebody who has the authority to say proceed with that, some robbery detective or captain or whatever, that is given permission for them to do it, and then there's the official capacity. I don't know that you can write all this down as easy as we can do by just having a signature on a physical piece of paper on a bulletin board. That's the easy one. But this one has to have latitude.
So is this really, what we're struggling with is whether or not the search is material to a case.
Yes.
Well, what is the process that an officer would take to essentially CYA, right, and make sure that they're
gotta tell somebody.
Yeah, but how does, I don't know if there's like technology wise, like, is there a firewall that like before I start looking and viewing all this sensitive material, I'm gonna type in the case number? I'm thinking again, like trying to put I'm hearing your scenario, Captain, and putting myself in those shoes. Like I'm a investigator that's looking into, inappropriate predator that's, and we're looking at stuff online and finding appropriate child stuff, right? At some point, if I don't know how this works within the department, right, just in terms of the cadence or the process, but at some point, if I see something, I'm gonna be like, hey, hold on, somebody come over here, like this isn't me, because at some point, you're in an office looking at inappropriate stuff, and so like how at what point of the process does it trigger something to be like, okay, it's flagging everybody, I'm about to look at some sensitive stuff right now. I ain't doing it on my lunch break right now, I'm on the clock right now, and this is an official case
you
number.
You gotta let your supervisor know, the course of this investigation. You're just not let loose to go trample anywhere, any place you want to go, because you are quote unquote investigating a crime. But if you get into something that's titillating or whatever, you got to let somebody know. You just can't be at lunch down in the lunchroom looking at pornography and say, hey, look, I'm investigating so I can do it here. No.
It has to be reasonable and material.
Yes. That's a great word, reasonable. Yeah. And you got to inform somebody. Who's over robbery? Who's over robbery?
There's a sergeant and lieutenant in charge of robbery.
That's their job, to manage those investigations and those inquiries. And they have to know that. They don't have to do the actual step-by-step investigative work. Maybe that's for some officers to do, some detectives to do, but they have to oversee this investigation and the quality of it. So if I didn't know you were going to this porn site and then somehow someone informs that, hey, Officer Smith has been on this porn site and looking at these juvenile and downloading this stuff, and then your defense can't be, oh, well, Captain Lyles knew all about it, and I didn't.
But that's not good enough. It still has to be reasonable and material, whether I informed you or not. You can't just be going off looking at.
Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes when you're looking at things, you think it's reasonable and you think it's material, then you find out that it's not. That's the part I was having latitude for. You can go down an investigative trail, and everything that leads you down that trail, that's material and is reasonable and etc. Then you turn a corner, you turn over a piece of evidence, and you find out, nope, it's not material. And it is unreasonable to go any further. You stop right there.
Well, then there's what you just said. It's not reasonable to go any further.
But
I would say at the outset,
up to that point, my supervisor should have known what I was doing.
Okay, well then at the outset, you need to make sure that the supervisor knows that you feel this material is reasonable and material, and you're going to do a search until such time as it clearly is not.
Exactly. And that happens all the time with every investigation. You go down streets that end up being dead ends more than they end up to a prize. So
I see.
And that's what makes it official and material. The fact that you are looking at something and you've let people know, you've either got a case number, you're actively pursuing something, you find out that it was wrong, and but they got your name down here going to these porn sites. Well,
yeah, when all that happened was somebody stole some copper wire.
Well, that you better be able to make the linkage on that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right. You better be able to make that bridge.
I mean, I understand. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know that we could put in words precisely for every possibility. I mean, reasonable and material, and that it's official, that we've let your supervisor know, and got permission.
It's the challenge that I have with it is, so I'm going to go back to the chair's comment, which was very wise, where the savvy officer, the wise officer, knowing that they're looking at inappropriate things, they should proactively document it somewhere, tell someone.
Yes.
Right. And then it just begs the question of how so. So if there is a case and there's an investigation, we have case notes. And again, the investigator is supposed to make case notes that says,
right,
today I researched one's Instagram for this case. Here's the case number. I spoke to Sergeant so-and-so.
yes.
I'm trying to think, like, the patrol officer, are we going to require the same, and how that would be documented if it's in the preliminary stages of something. So I have to think about that. We don't have to have an answer today, but that.
Yeah, because what's concerning me now is if I got the verbal okay and I may put it in my notes, does that verbal okay given by that superior officer need to be noted too?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes, but it doesn't always, like, where is the question? I don't know where that would necessarily go.
Because in the haste of getting things done. Sometimes you forget, didn't make a note of it, don't remember that you gave the okay. That's that. I don't know if that's too much in the weeds, but documentation and that of a particular action that could lead to discipline if not authorized is kind of important.
That's right.
And we were talking
That's
about him
right.
doing it on his own time, right? On his own equipment. Is that correct? Own phone.
Oh, now that to me gets a little bit dicey.
That's
Why are you
what I'm asking.
Well,
doing it your
he-
own time and your own equipment?
That's what I was asking.
right.
It-
And so I would argue that one using their own personal device and doing that would automatically constitute non-official, because we give you the equipment to make it official.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're doing that, that means it's, I would say, a violation of this section.
yes.
And probably the law.
Well, I mean, it's social. I mean, it's public. Yeah. Well, I mean, it can be criminal, but
Well, if you are looking at pornography,
On your own, am I not-
pornography, that's against the law, period. Just looking at it. I'm talking about,
Is it?
age. So if you're doing that,
Is looking at pornography illegal?
no, I'm talking about underage.
Oh,
yeah,
child.
right,
Child
sure,
pornography, yes.
sure,
Oh, you
sure.
you didn't
So
say
that's-
child. 'Cause-
No,
Okay.
I said underage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse
yeah.
me.
If it's underage pornography, then
Underage, yes.
yeah,
Illegal.
You ain't,
Yes.
I don't care whose equipment is on. That's a felony.
Yes, that's true.
And so if you just looking at pornography, that's your business on your equipment
Yeah.
off duty.
Okay. There is a policy on this somewhere. I think it's I-18. I gotta look it up, because it might speak to this. Because since the dawn of social media, if you will, we've had a couple of high profile cases I'm sure you're all familiar with. And we wrote a policy subsequent to that. But we do solve a lot of violent crimes by use of social media. So we certainly don't want to dissuade our investigators
Oh,
and
no, no.
officers from doing that. So we want to find a balance of that. Yeah.
I actually saw a guy last week on a podcast talk about how many hits him and his guys have done, right on the body. And the guy who's doing the podcast was saying, hey, you can't say that. And the guy was just bragging about it. He ultimately got arrested with that guy. Who was that? Big Lou out of Los Angeles. He got arrested with him because of his running his mouth. So it does. Social media can't get you in trouble.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Can't get, and that ain't good trouble either.
All right. I'll put some more thought into this section. I like the conversation on this. Electronic messaging. Members and employees shall not use electronic mail, city computers, or electronic messaging devices for any purpose that violates city administrative instructions or department policy. Yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of like text message, I would say that's what gets people in trouble for this. I mean, back in the day, the Digicoms, Deacon Lyles, I'm sure you remember those.
Yeah.
Where you can message, this is before cell phones and text messages, but you can message computer to computer while at work, and people would send inappropriate things, and so that would violate this. But now it's in the age of text messages, so they do qualify this as city computers or electronic devices. Yeah, we do all have work cell phones, so sending inappropriate text, photos, etc., would violate this section.
I like that.
I miss the Digicoms. They were a lot easier to use than Microsoft in many ways. Forwarding communications to higher commands. Any member or employee receiving a written communication for transmission to a higher command shall, in every case, forward such communication. A member or employee receiving a communication from a subordinate directed to a higher command shall endorse it, indicating approval or disapproval.
Okay, so that's what we were talking about in getting in touch with the chief, right? No? Yes?
It would. I, I'm trying to think how they, like, the writer of this is probably before email. So it used to be writing a memorandum.
Oh, yeah. I forget how old this is. That was
Yeah.
looking at. Yeah.
And I think the theme behind this is, I look at the first section is, let's say that, because we do have a policy that allows constructive feedback to the chief. It's a very old policy, but my supervisor should not, according to this, prevent me from sending anything to the chief that's appropriate, right? So this first mandates that they shall forward such communication, and they shall then also indicate endorsement, whether approving or disapproving. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's better. I tell people to put things in email because it's just better for tracking, and I think people prefer email versus a written document that they can easily get lost. So maybe I'm going to alter this, or just to include email communication.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through this. Grievances is another one. So we have what's called step 3 grievance. So let's say I get disciplined today. I have 7 days to grieve it. And the way the grievance process is, I grieve it to the chief of police, and it has to go through my chain of command. So it goes to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, sometimes deputy chief, then to the chief. So that would be an example of a communication that would go to the chief that would require some type of affirmative response from my chain of command.
I see.
So yeah. Anyway, I'll chain, let me make a note really quick. Great. All right. 35660. We're almost done with this section. Department address, private use of. Members and employees shall not use the department as a mailing address for private purposes.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this. I'm pretty sure that one who would use an apartment address for private reasons is trying to hide something from their significant other at their house. So that's why they would do that. But I haven't seen that issue. All right, 35680. Electronic telecommunication entertainment devices, members, employees shall not utilize. Yes, sir.
What about work equipment or stuff for the office? But that's personal. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking like a juicer I want to have in the office, so I do an Amazon order to the office. It's my personal money. I want to start juicing at lunch. I don't know. I'm just thinking in the age of Amazon too. We order a lot of packages and stuff, and I don't know if you guys ever get Amazon packages going to the department, if that's just a non thing. But I was just thinking, like, I don't know.
But such a benign order could come to your house and you bring it into the office yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just wondering if that's ever happened.
I'm sure it has. I guess you can argue it's not really for private purposes, but that is a work-related purpose. I just, bought it with my own money. I don't know.
I'm just thinking somebody that works all the time, maybe doesn't have a family, and you know, porch pirates are real, and they don't want it sent over there.
Yeah.
Send it to my office. I'm here all the time.
So that is, I think, a better example of as something important that I don't want stolen from my porch. I can absolutely see that as a reason for people to use a work address.
Yeah, but you know, people sending all their Christmas packages to the office because they want to hide, right?
I
And
mean, I'm
there's a
not
limit.
suggesting we make any changes. I think it's very straightforward. We leave it as is. I was just noting.
Yeah, no, that's when you just buy yourself a PO box.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. Electronic devices, members and employees shall not utilize any electronic communication device while on duty to the extent that such usage adversely affects her performance or productivity or interferes with his or her safety or the safety of others. Personal electronic entertainment devices, television, DVD player, video games, or computer game systems shall not be used while on duty without prior approval of the unit commander. Approved cellular telephones, electronic devices with the capability of playing video files shall not be used in such a manner while on duty. Music devices shall only be utilized in city vehicles while on duty without headphones. Personnel are permitted to monitor major news worthy events, training, traffic monitoring, or other work-related material. Excessive or inappropriate use of department-issued devices may be subject to reimbursement to the city. This is an outdated section, obviously.
I don't know, I'm addicted to audiobooks. So I, I would violate this if I weren't careful. Listening to a book on patrol. So so it could happen. It's just a different people are listening to different things, music, learning another language,
Not on patrol.
Yeah, well, isn't this what this is all about? Don't do that. Don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was naming about a bunch of outdated stuff, but it still could happen.
Yeah. If you listen to all that stuff with earphones on and all of that, how are you listening to the radio?
Correct.
Right.
Anything that interferes.
Right.
Like they had on my side hustle, the playground, they had to make all the everybody take their earphones out. You can't have your earphones in your ear at all.
Because you can't hear a child screaming for help.
Yeah. Or what's going on the walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might update this just to make it more modern. DVD player. My son was going on a missions trip and I went to a fundraising event and they were selling DVDs. I'm like, I wish I could help, but I haven't had a DVD player in 15 years. So I'm going to update this. I have seen a recent example of this. I don't know the details of it, but I suspect that someone probably saw an officer playing on his or her phone, maybe a video game, and made a complaint. You know, it's so sometimes, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. I'm just getting ahead to some of the issues probably the unions will have, but an officer, we sometimes have hospital guard for prisoners, and it's the middle of the night. The prisoner's asleep in bed. Can an officer play a video game on their cell phone or watch a video without earbuds, not disturbing anyone? Because all they can really do is sit there. They can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They can't respond to calls. They're stuck.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
Your job is to guard the prisoner, and there's too many folks who've gotten, hurt or killed, or and how did this happen? Oh, the guards were asleep or whatever. No, your job is to guard the person.
Yeah.
You guys remember
See, what's that?
I was just thinking it is my image just hit me in my head. The female attorney who lived in Berkeley, who was the attorney for, I think, the Black Panther Party and etc. And then she was shot in her home 3 o'clock in the morning, and she survived that.
Hmm.
My assignment was to guard that woman for about 6 months.
Wow.
Wow.
And that it was at night. It was at night. And
Wow.
and
Wow.
I was on point every day because I was scared to death that people were coming back, right? So
Yeah.
So no, you can't have any distraction. Do your job.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna update and make them some more modern. I'll probably streaming devices, you know, the things that are,
There you go.
yeah. Okay. Improper dissemination of computer information. Members, employees shall not disseminate information obtained from the department city computer without proper authorization.
Looks like we ran across this already.
Yeah, there has been some overlap, and we might have, like, we talked about this because, I mean, there's obviously the more severe one, which is
Right.
Department of Justice information. I mean, that is severe punishment too. It's a crime. It's a misdemeanor if I disseminate that. But I mean, let's just say, let's go back to a non-criminal issue. Uh, there's a 5K fun run that the department wants to organize, and I want my friends to attend. Let's say to support it. According to this, I'm not allowed to disseminate it to them without authorization, which I think is fair. I think that that wall should be there. And I haven't seen this as an issue, but I know some people can get kind of reckless with email, just like everything else, where, you know, you be careful of who you're sending this stuff to.
Yeah.
So, I just want to probably, like, this is again where I don't understand why we're so specific in some areas, but not others. Just says without proper authorization. I don't know what that means. So,
I think it means some higher up signing off on it.
yeah, but supervisor, commander, how, you know, like, we were specific before, but not this one. They left that out. I mean, I think commander authorization, no different than the other one. I think that's reasonable.
Well, if you want
And
to be consistent, then you pick one language and use that in both cases.
yeah. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Commander approval. All right, last one, unauthorized use of electronic systems. Members, employees shall not use or access department, city, county computer systems, databases, records, and other communication equipment unless authorized to do so by a competent authority. That authority is somewhat already established. So when one graduates the academy, they are certified, maybe a too specific, but they're they're granted authority just based on the training and the tests sometimes that they have to take to get that. So
Yeah.
their graduation from the academy is somewhat of
Yeah.
that automatic competent
That, that,
authority.
that goes with the basic certificate.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they can go NCIC, they can use CLETS, they have the authority because they have those powers of arrest and et cetera as a police officer in the state of California. So
yeah. So the problem we have with this, and as I read this, it's the unauthorized use. So really arguing over what is unauthorized. So if similar to like the social media argument, if you're going in there for anything but a specific investigation,
well,
then
that's the requirements. That's
right.
the state law requirement. you got to have a specific investigation, and you have to back that up with some kind of case number. You know,
And whenever you start something with unauthorized,
yeah.
then you have to say how they get authorized, who authorizes it.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. So the authorization to access comes from graduating the academy, but the reason behind it is a different argument. So just because you have like I have access to CLETS, but I haven't used it in years. I mean, there's really no reason for me to do it.
Right.
So for me to go in there, I need to have a specific reason.
And CLETS ask you for a case number.
That's right.
They ask you for
And
a
it's
case
audited.
number. And if you don't have a case number, then you have violated California state law. You can't go in and say,
Right.
I want to find out Gloria Johnson's DMV license number so I can get her address, so I can just happen to drive by her house, no case number. Can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's unauthorized.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this section. The reason why, to Deacon Lyle's point and what we talked about, is like these systems have an auditing structure within it. So if you're doing it without proper authorization, you're going to get found by someone.
Right.
So that's why it's kind of it's self-regulating, and I've seen this plenty of times where people have inappropriately accessed it, and it wasn't long before they were found.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't get away with it like you used to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the question. And there's a tort violation to it too. You can be sued.
Sued civilly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a violation of your right of privacy.
Yeah.
I mean, it can ruin someone's life, and it's it's like unlike me posting inappropriate things on social media where I'm almost wanting to get caught. The CLETS system is like, someone makes a mistake in their life, that information's stored within these databases. It's not, it's not for someone to find out later about. It's there because it has to be, but only accessed by for legitimate reasons. So that's why the auditing powers are so significant. Yeah. But not social media. Yeah. Okay. That takes us actually through a whole new section. So I think we covered almost 20 sections today. So not bad.
Good job. You ought to go back
Yeah.
on vacation, man.
So I do have a list of notes. I will be sure to be ready to talk about in our next meeting.
Okay.
So do you want to continue tonight, or you're saying maybe this is a good break?
I don't know if you were on, but
He
we
wasn't.
found out that Brian is on vacation right
Now?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yes, Marcia. Right this
Oh, bye.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to spend my vacation with all of you. There's nothing wrong
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah.
You need a life, bro.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
No, it's
So,
certainly
but thank
appreciated,
We
Captain.
appreciate your dedication,
Yeah.
though. My
Yeah, you're
goodness.
welcome. Thank you.
And he listed 10, we got through 20. That's enough. That's enough.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
But
great.
when I first started on the police commission, I would take my computer with me on vacation, and I never missed a meeting.
Yeah, sometimes you have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what certainly makes this group special. So appreciate you all, and yeah, we'll catch you everyone in a couple of weeks as it looks like this is a good conclusion to our meeting.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you, everyone.
All
Take
who
care.
celebrate Happy Easter.
Happy
Happy
Easter.
Likewise.
Happy
Happy Easter.
Resurrection Day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Bye
See
bye.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.